Hi everyone, welcome to the Evangelist Nick Garrett channel. Today we're beginning a discussion on the law as written in the New and Old Testaments of the Bible. But before we begin, there seems to be a tendency to view the law as written in the Bible as wholly separate from the forms of law written by various civilizations throughout history. Nothing could be further from the truth. Laws written in the Judeo-Christian tradition find their ways into statute across the Western world. Types of religion that rely on theocracies find their religious laws in parts of the world. So, the Bible is the legal system in some ways for many civilized nations. It attempts to address the problem of human wickedness. What's written in the Bible is not the earliest. The Code of Hammurabi predates it by about 1,000 years. But Hammurabi's code is strictly secular and societal. The Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Holy Bible, the Law of Moses, is complete, moral, and speaks of a strict obligation to God. One can see that Moses borrows from Hammurabi, but at the same time, most of the similarities would have been discovered by people groups, much like during the late humanist era, when the nation of the United States of America was formed. Things were called natural rights, God-given rights. And these would have been happened upon by any people group. Now, if one is to compare the two, the Bible and Hammurabi, it's important to compare the prologue of what's written in Hammurabi and the Pentateuch because it helps gain an understanding. So first, let's look at the historical approach. Before looking at Moses and the law given by God, we have to look at the patriarchal stage prior to Moses. Abraham, for example. During the period of the family patriarchs like Abraham, the head of the family ran the rules of each family. And we see God ordaining these things. Family ordained by God. Children are a gift and a responsibility from God. Patriarchal authority over children. These are present themes. After Jacob and his family moved to Egypt, the patriarchal family structure continued as a form of government among the Hebrews. Even under Egyptian rule, the system of Hebrew rules were governed by the family patriarch. While there may have been a tribal form of leadership, there was no centralized leadership at that time. Tribal records began being kept around the time of the Exodus when it began in Egypt. Under Moses, about 300,000 people, historians speculate, bound together. The tie that bound them was the promise given to Abraham by God, then to Isaac, then to Jacob, that they would inherit this land in Canaan. They still had no central form of government, but their leadership was centered on one individual, Moses, who began organizing them economically, socially, civilly, and religiously. Eventually, each tribe solidified under the names of the 12 tribes of Israel around patriarchal government by the princes of the tribes and known as elders. With this structure, Jehovah was their king. He ruled through the leadership of Moses and the tribal patriarchs as heads. So what do we see then? We see growth of Israel in Egypt. We see that Israel was oppressed. We see Moses chosen to deliver Israel from Egyptian bondage. We see patriarchal and tribal rulers in Israel. We see Jehovah rule as Israel's king. Religious rule by elders. Military organization. Theocratic government in Israel. After several encampments between Egypt and Israel, The Hebrews arrived at the foot of Mount Sinai, where there for a year Moses was given the laws of God on the tablets of stone and the details specifying their meaning. It was to be a theocracy. That's much different in the New Testament, but modern examples of theocracy include Islam. Islam is theocracy or theopolitical. First, God gave Moses the oral utterance and then the 10 Commandments, which were the moral and religious laws. These became the constitutional and fundamental law upon which all other moral laws would be based. Religious, moral, ethical, domestic, social, economic, industrial life, national conduct. So here is a list that the new laws addressed, and all of these can be found in those first 5 books of the Bible. And I want you to picture your home state's statute, volumes of books that contain certain subject matter, education, environment, family, etc. Laws of theocracy, laws pertaining to foreigners, laws pertaining to slavery, laws pertaining to taxation, military laws, laws pertaining to marriage, laws pertaining to parents and children, laws pertaining to sanitation and cleanliness, laws pertaining to food, laws pertaining to business and economics, laws pertaining to real estate, laws pertaining to theocracy, laws pertaining to society, laws pertaining to immorality, crimes against property, crimes against fellow men, humane laws, benevolence and philanthropies, laws relating to man's duties to God, sacred obligations and dues to God, sacred seasons or time dedicated to the Lord, legal procedure in Israel, under jurisdictional judges, protection for men accused from murder, methods of punishment for criminal offenses, infliction of physical pain for certain crimes, punishment for religious and civil crimes, payment for damages exacted. Now, to go back for a second to the Code of Hammurabi, they were cuneiform texts that had civil and secular laws for the period of the 6th king of Babylon. Amraphel is believed to be the king from Genesis chapter 14, his interactions with Abraham. Some of what's written in Hammurabi were supernatural in nature, but mostly things were secular in nature. Today's modern law in the West is similar in design to Judeo-Western law too. That is changing in modern times, particularly as the United States loses its soft power in the form of moral authority. Next time we'll look more in depth at Hammurabi's code and the verses of Scripture that address these laws. Before we get together again, I want you to think about every law that you heard talked about on television, or if you have a book on your shelf that deals with law, or even taking out the Constitution and reading it, and see how the Judeo-Christian system of law influenced the society we live in today, how it influenced the rise of nation states, and how it influences the rise of sovereignty. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to talking to you next time. May God bless you, and may your work today bear fruit. Thanks.